Hello everyone and welcome to this insightful interview. I am your host Alyan and today we have the privilege of sitting down with the remarkable Miss Sheral, our true powerhouse in the world communication and media with her extensive expertise as a communication strategist, media trainer, podcast and radio host, professional speaker, image and voice talent. Miss Sheral's journey is nothing short of inspiring. So, hello, Miss, how are you? And thank you so much for coming in my show.
Oh, Alyan, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So, before moving on to question, can you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Sheral DeVaughn. I'm the founder of Speaking with Share. I'm a communication strategist. And what I do is I help my clients go ahead and prevent their voice from being invisible by using custom strategies to connect their voice and message with their ideal audience.
Okay, that's great. Thanks so much for this wonderful introduction. So, my first question in your screen, can you tell us about your journey and how you got started in your career as a communication strategist?
Well, it started with an absolute love for radio as a child, listening to, and I'm dating myself a little bit here, but people like the late great Wolfman Jack, Rick Dees, uh, Casey Kasem, who was the original voice of Shaggy in the Scooby Doo cartoon series. So I had a love of it from there. Got into radio at a very young age. Ended up with three number one morning shows as a result over the course of 20 years, and then learned that what made me successful within that industry also carried over into sales in the wine and spirits industry and in basically every other career field. So after several years honing my craft with communication, I decided to open up my own business and bring what I've learned to other people to help them in their path to success.
All right, that's great. So, what inspired you to become a media trainer?
Well, it kind of comes back to that same thing. I have over 20 years of both radio and television um, experience within corporate settings and such. And so with all of that various experience, it's pretty easy for me to come back in and help those that want to improve their interview skills or start a podcast and get into the different types of. I think we're back now. I lost you there for a minute.
Yeah, we are back. Okay. Okay. So how did you venture into podcasting and radio hosting? What do you enjoy most about it?
Well, I got into radio, like I said, at a young age. I worked with several corporate radio groups back in the past. And it was just a natural transition for me as I got out of that industry and decided to get into business for myself to jump into the podcasting realm. It's similar in a lot of respects, but it's far more creative. And it is one of the fastest growing mediums that there is, both in the audio and in the video podcasting segment. I like that freedom. I like that creativity.
All right, that's great. So, what topic or theme do you typically cover on your podcasting or radio show?
There's a couple of different things. I have 2 podcasts that I do. The one is called Cocktails and Conspiracies, and that one is more for fun. It handles things within the wine and spirits industry with, whiskey distillers and things like that, but it also ties in to some of the fun topics like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, ghosts, paranormal, that sort of thing. So it was just a place to kind of come together and get some of the topics that I found that were interesting and fun and sit around. It's kind of a show where you sit around with friends and discuss all the things that you normally wouldn't talk about in a work setting or what have you. Just something to get away from all of the seriousness of life, something that's a little more fun and approachable. The second podcast is The Power of a 5-Minute Conversation, and it talks to inspiring and motivational people within various industries that have a story to tell. You know how when you have a conversation with someone and over the course of time there's maybe a 5-minute little piece that you might not remember later on, but it has the power to change a mood, to change a mind, a direction, a life, or even save a life. And that's what the topic of that podcast is. We talk about those inspiring pieces of a conversation that are so powerful that they have that effect.
All right, that's amazing. So, as a professional speaker, can you share some of your favorite topic to speak about and why?
As a professional speaker, I don't think it's something that you jump into with all these various topics. You stick with what you know. Some of the topics that I deal with, of course, are how connection is the key piece to effective communication. I talk about things like um, something that I've trademarked and called pitch slapping, how not to be overly salesy with your approach on social media or networking events. I also have a topic that I speak about your invisible voice, where you feel like you aren't being heard.
That awesome. So, how do you prepare for public speaking engagement to ensure your message resonates with the audience?
The easiest way to prepare for that is ask a lot of questions. When you are being invited to speak somewhere, talk to your event host. Find out a little bit more about the time, the place. If there's anything in particular with jargon or terminology. There was an example of a speaker who had to really tone down the way he delivered his speech because he was speaking to a group of people that were it was part of the National Headache Society, and all of the people in the audience actually were suffering from migraines in the audience as he was speaking. So he needed to learn how to maybe tone down the energy and the volume of his speech. And those are things that you can find out before you ever walk into that room. You ask the questions and discover all the little pieces that make your audience tick, and that's the way that you resonate best with your audience.
All right. So, why do you find most rewarding about being an EMS and event?
When I do MC work for events, the purpose of an MC is to keep everything flowing so that there's great energy and there's not downtime. It keeps everything transitioning beautifully, and it gives your audience a little bit of a mental break because typically they're digesting a lot of information. A good MC is able to have fun, keep things light, and keep things moving for an event so that it doesn't feel awkward or disjointed. And that's the part that I like best, is being able to keep everything flowing seamlessly for the event coordinators, for the other speakers, and for the audience.
Okay. So, can you share an example of particular memorable event you hosted and MC?
There was an event that I did in Texas where there were a lot of technical difficulties that were taking place. It was a global event and it was a hybrid. There were people that were there live and there were people that were being piped in, and the equipment wasn't working. The event host was obviously very frustrated and wanted to cancel everything just on the spot. You can't do that. There's that old saying, the show must go on. And so my job was to make the best of the situation. work it out as best as I could with getting uh, it wasn't ideal, but we had different pieces of equipment where the people that were online could at least still participate, hear what was happening, see a lot of what was going on. And my job as the MC was to again facilitate the event so that it would run smoothly and transition. You make the best with what you have and you keep things flowing.
All right. So, as an voice talent, what type of project have you worked on, and which one was the most challenging?
I've worked on a number of different projects over the course of many years, whether it's commercials for television and radio, marketing pieces. In fact, I've got a piece that I'm working on for a doctor in Colorado for his website. But I think the most challenging project I've ever worked on was when AJ McLean of the Backstreet Boys was launching his cosmetic line, his nail polish line, Ava Dean Beauty. And I sat down with his team and we came up with the messaging for his website, for his email marketing campaign, his bio on the website, things like that, in order to appeal to a global audience of that massive scale because he's a Backstreet Boy. So there are people from all around the globe that are paying attention and wanted to make certain that it fit with his direction and his personality to make it a successful launch.
Okay. So, how do you maintain and enhance your voice for voice over work?
Just not a lot of screaming. You don't wanna make yourself go hoarse. Prior to doing any sort of voice work, whether it's coming on to do an interview with you or doing a professional piece, I make certain that I stay away from, dairy products because they tend to coat your throat along with anything that's very sugary or chemical laden, a Red Bull, a energy drink, anything like that. I stay away from those sorts of things because they do coat and irritate the throat. You maintain a lot of you want to stay hydrated and just stay consistent with it. Don't go over the top with your volume yelling and screaming and just be very mindful of what you're consuming prior.
Okay. So, what community skill do you believe are most essential in today's fast-paced digital world?
The ability to listen, to actively listen, to pay attention without the distractions. We live in, a massively digital world where we're always on our phones or, uh, something. Set it down and engage in that one on one. Put out the distractions. You will learn so much more and have so much more of an effective impact in your communication. You'll alleviate some of the miscommunications, the mistakes, the misunderstandings that take place if you actually can listen for the sake of learning information rather than listening with the intent to just respond. Being quiet and listening and asking questions are the most effective things that you can do for greater communication.
Okay. Sorry. So, how do you help individual or organization improve their communication strategy?
The what I do with my clients is we'll sit down and have a series of discovery chats. Conversation kind of like what we're having right now, but I have a specific set of questions that I ask. I want to find out exactly what their purpose is, who they're exactly down to coming up with a name and a whole personality of their ideal audience. So we look at all the different key points and then I take a look at what their personality is like because I don't ever want anyone to go in and change who they are. You want to stay authentic and true to who you are. So I take a look at those things. I take a look at the personality, the location, all of the different factors with their audience, and then create those custom strategies to get them to more effectively connect.
Okay, that's great. So, what advice would you give to someone looking to improve their public speaking skills?
If you're looking to improve your public speaking skills, there are a couple of ways. First of all, don't be afraid to get out there and speak. Just don't be afraid. It's going to be messy, but it's like anything, any other skill. You aren't going to get good at it unless you practice. And there are going to be times where it's messy. Doesn't matter. You're going to continue to improve on that. Use it as a building block. There are some organizations that you can check out in order to enhance your public speaking and learn what's effective and what isn't, whether it's, joining a local Toastmasters group for the bare basics, or even better, if you like, I work with an individual and we put on some speaker mastery boot camps where it is a 3-day intensive for people coming in from all walks of life who will learn how to create a business from professional speaking, or use professional speaking in such a way that it enhances the revenue of their own business. So there are a couple of different places. Don't be afraid to jump into a group. Nobody is perfect straight out of the chute. It takes practice, and come to a place where you've got people that have already been doing it that will work with you on a one-on-one setting and give you that particular time and attention to enhance your abilities.
All right. Sorry. All right. So, in your opinion, who has the role of media and communication evolved in recent years?
Honestly, I don't think it has evolved. I think it's devolved. With it's crazy. We have all these different mediums, whether it's terrestrial radio and television, whether it's podcasting, social media, but I don't think people know how to communicate as effectively as they once did. I think it is very polarized. People like to throw out a lot of opinions. I think media in particular has an agenda always. They have an agenda, and they don't want to hear diverse opinions. They're not curious about the rest of the information. They're looking for pieces that bolster their own opinions, and they're looking for gotcha moments. And I think that's a disservice to everyone. I think it is done more harm to communication than it has enhanced it.
All right. So, what are some common misconceptions people have about effective communication?
Most people think that if they can talk, they can communicate. But just because you can let words come out of your mouth doesn't mean that your message is being received. It doesn't mean that it's being understood. It doesn't mean that the person hearing your words find it compelling or that they're receptive to your message. I think that's the biggest misconception. And it comes back down to being able to be still and quiet, pay attention, really be right there, focused, asking questions, and actively listening with no intention to respond, but to understand is the biggest thing.
That's awesome. So, can you share any tips for successfully managing and growing a podcast or radio show audience?
Don't get discouraged. It's going to take a bit. There are no real shortcuts in order to growing your podcast. Buying listeners or promotions, it actually is going to hurt you in the long run. The best way to do it is organically, and the best way to grow that organically is to be really focused on what your topic is. In my case, if I'm doing cocktails and conspiracies, I know exactly what my topic is, and I don't veer off into, sports teams or political forays or what have you. I stick with what the theme is. Also, stay consistent when you have people that are finding you, they wanna know that you're going to be there reliably. Don't put up a post and then 3 months later you put up another post, or you've all of a sudden got 5 in a row and you're jumping all over. Stay consistent with your release dates, stay consistent with the amount of time for each episode, and stay true to what your actual theme is.
Alright, so what strategies do you employ to stay current in the ever changing media landscape?
I'm constantly learning. I am always checking out different um, events, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a live retreat. I am constantly educating myself because, as you know, it changes. It changes daily. And so I stay on top of all of the different um, industry mediums to get different pieces, find things that will um, maybe free up some of my time with editing, figuring out which platforms are going to be most effective, where the audience I'm looking for hangs out. So it is a constant. eh, People will say they're an expert, but you're never truly an expert unless you're always a student. And I pride myself on spending a couple of hours every day taking a look at what's new, what's exciting, places that you wouldn't even expect that all of a sudden you look at and go, "Hmm, that's kind of interesting." And then you put your own spin on it and just keep evolving along with the technology and with the platforms.
Okay, so do you have any favorite tools or resource that you recommended for aspiring media professionals?
Oh, goodness. See, that's kind of a generic question for me. There's so many different areas that we could go with. We could talk about various types of equipment to use. We could talk about the different platforms. I, media professional is such a big term now because media encompasses so many different things. There's the social media aspect. There's the different online streaming venues, whether it's radio or television. There's regular radio and television. There's the podcasting. There's all of it. The tools, for podcasting, I guess you want to make certain that you invest in a quality editing software program if you're going to do it yourself, or really, really know who is editing for you. Don't just find the cheapest person. Figure out the quality. What programs are they using? How long have they been doing it? Does it sound does the quality sound like what you're looking for? Does the person who's editing for you understand your personality and your vision? Those are going to be some of the things that you need to understand most. It's not one particular tool. You can always upgrade your equipment. You can always upgrade the platform. It comes down to whether you or your team are truly on the same page, and if it all is saving you time and bringing you a quality and effective show.
Okay, so can you share a personal or professional achievement that you are particularly proud of?
I'll share a personal one with you. I have been doing long distance endurance kayak racing for the past several years, and I think my achievement that I'm most proud of with that is I completed the Missouri River 340. And what that is, it's the world's longest nonstop kayak and canoe river race, where we have 85 hours to complete 340 miles on the Missouri River, going completely across the state of Missouri. And to give you some idea of how big that is, it would be like paddling across the entirety of Syria if you were to do that in 85 hours or less. And I've managed to complete it once. Would have completed it last year, but weather was a factor in that one. It was the first time in 18 years that they ended the race early because of hazardous weather. You paddle at night, you paddle through storms, you have large barges that are coming at you. There are natural um, hazards. There are wing dikes. There are other boats coming at you, and it is brutal, but it's something that I found important, and I learned a lot of life lessons about staying consistent, persistent, and never giving up. And I'm going to do it again this year. This time in a 14-person dragon boat, oversized. It looks like a big Viking boat, and I'll be doing it again, and we're looking to complete that in approximately 45 hours, 340 miles in 45 hours, no sleep on that one.
Okay, that's awesome. So thank you so much, Miss, again for your valuable time, and thank you so much for everyone as we draw this captivating conversation to close. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Miss Shral for sharing her experience and expertise with us today. Thank you so much, Miss, for your valuable time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.